Hi, today we are going to talk about this computer. When you see it from this side without anything else, it looks very anonymous and you can't really see what brand this is. And we won't reveal that yet, but we are going to take an examination of this machine. You do have some strange design issues. Here is the power switch, the hinge for the lid and the locking mechanism, and you see some strange thing here. What is this? And you do have on the back side, you have a strange arrangement for power. You have both charge and DC, and that means that is one plug for charging the computer and one plug for actually running it. And these are slightly different. This one has a bit thicker center pin, and this is smaller altogether. And look at these symbols. You have the symbols on the outside of the lid. It's printer, it's floppy disk, it's serial, and it's a bus. So do you think that's an expansion bus? Probably, but it's covered up inside here. And you have the serial, you have the floppy connector, and you have the parallel. And this floppy connector is a slightly wider connector than the others. So this is a proprietary floppy connector. And on this side, you have something that resembles what you saw on the other side. And I'm going to reveal what's inside this now. And this is my Ulevetti M15 personal computer, and it do have a rather strange design. It's rather looks like a appliance thing. This could be the front of an 80s microwave oven, but it actually is a rather nice looking computer, and I especially love this tiny speaker with the grill over. And here you have the contrast knob, you have the volume knob, you have speaker on off in addition to volume, and you have battery, and you have power LEDs here. And when you see here, you see that the things you saw on the side, that actually the floppy drives, and they're kind of locked in here until you open this, and then you have the opening for the floppy drive in here. So it's one floppy drive from each side. And this computer is originally sold in Norway. You can see the Norwegian characters here, and the machine is sold by the company that called Untitled. I do have a short presentation of this machine in another video, but we are still going to turn this on and check if it works. I said that this was an Olivetti M15, and if we see on the bottom of the case, we do have some more information. It's stated that this is an XP1020R, 5.1 volt, 2.2 amperes. So that's probably the main power supply to this, and it has a serial number of 3502. And Ulevetti is an Italian company, but this is made in Japan. If that means that Ulevetti actually had a production facility in Japan, I doubt it. I do think that this machine is actually manufactured by another company, and maybe it's totally designed by Ulevetti, but who really knows after all this time. We will try to investigate that in a bit. So for the power supply of this, the power supply on this is quite a strange beast. It has the two connectors as I stated earlier, and both these leads are loose so that you can unplug them from the power supply and take them away. And it do state that this has two cables, and it also states that first connect the DC cable and or the battery charge cable, then connect the AC power cable. So you should connect the other cables first and then plug in the AC power. And we will respect Ulevetti for that. And this is a metal case with this kind of lid. It's no plastic at all on the outside, but it is a switch mode power supply, and it's also auto 100 to 240 volt AC, and it does have a small LED here to indicate that it's on. This we will be testing, and this machine has no hard drive, so the only way to boot this is by floppy. And there we have plugged in both of these, and we have the power supply like so, and this was a quite lengthy power cable. I will plug that in here, and it's no light in this LED. That cannot be a good sign, I think, but who knows. Yeah. The screen on this does not bend up further than this, but I will actually try to turn it on now to see if it actually works. And it does not. And I suspect that it is the power supply that's faulty, and as I did say, the LED did not light up. I will try this now with another power connection that I know have power, in case it's something wrong with either the plug set or the cable. So now it's plugged into another main outlet. I have plugged it in, and no green light. So that means that we actually have to do something other than we originally planned, and I'm going to put this away for a moment, and I'm going to disconnect these two leads, and I'm going to open this to see what we will find inside. It's rather nice to have a power supply that you can just unscrew the bottom of. Normally on modern power supplies I have to use a chisel or something to break them open. This power supply looks really modern for its age, and the copper heatsink is a rather nice touch. But as we look into this, we see no burnt components, and it looks totally clean and almost brand new. But there should be a fuse inside here. At least there should be a fuse for the primary voltage side. And I do think that this is buried beneath this rubber thingy here. So we do have to take this apart to measure. Yes, but the first line of business here is to actually measure if there are some power left on the main capacitor on the primary side, and it was not. So then we can use the ohm meter to just measure over the fuse, and this should be a 2 amp fuse. Yeah, but the fuse is okay. Yeah, and I will just do a quick inspection to see if there are more fuses on this circuit. There could be fuses also on the output stages, but it's a bit strange that it didn't light up the LED, and it did not either light up the charge or power light. So it means that both secondary circuits are dead, and that means that the fault most likely lies on the primary side. But as the fuse was not blown, I have to look into this power supply later, because that will be wildly outside of the scope of this video. But now the question is, what do we really need to start this computer? We have the fat one is for charging, and the other one is for DC power. And I wonder if the plug I made last time for DC power is fitting, and it is. And then the question is, and that we can find out from this power supply, what is the common ground on this? And this is the barrel. The output of this power supply most likely is center positive, as the barrel seems to be connected to ground. But it's a bit strange because it's not an absolute dead short. So we will have to look into this a bit further before I connect the power on this. And the way to check this further is actually to measure on the laptop itself to see if we find which part of this is connected to ground. And we have to find a ground point, and normally the chassis ground on the connectors in the back is good enough to measure against. So first we measure from the barrel to ground, and it's actually not a dead short, and it's varying, and that's kind of strange. And we also measure from the tip to the ground, and that's a higher resistance, but not quite a dead short that either. So this is really looking strange. And sorry for the bad footage here, I forgot to adjust the camera. But it seems that we will have to investigate this further, and I do think I have to take out the battery pack and see what's inside this. I have been considering my options, and first I'm going to take out the battery. I do know there are some issues with that. I have to see here. There is some cover or something to take out the back. I do think it's these ones. Solid 3mm screw. Like so, and this is the battery, and the battery is 4.8 volt. And is there any power on it now? That I really doubt. I just put this in volts. No, it's not. But from this end we should be able to measure out where we should put what in this. And this battery had the minus connection on this end. That means this was the ground. Okay, this was... I do think we have some bad soldering joints here, but I'm not sure if this is easy to reach. And this is the power switch, and this is the whole module. I don't think I have to undo everything. I just need to uncover the print. I do remember cutting my fingers several times on equipment from Ulevetti, because they always had this strange design. Okay, so you see, I will try to zoom in on this. So here you see the print, and when I move this, you will see that the solder joints here actually is moving together with this. So I have to fire up the soldering iron, and I have to solder this back in place. This is not the issue that makes the power supply not work, but this is the issue that we couldn't measure what should be where on this connector. So this is the first thing I have to address. The soldering station that I have down here in my shed is actually broken. It stopped working, and I haven't had time to look into that yet. So this is a really old soldering iron. I had it for more than 30 years, and I'm just going to solder these joints that was cracked. Yes, but this should be good enough, and now it's just about getting it back together again. Yeah, then we have established that this is a center positive pin. So then we will be able to continue, and they said that this was 5.2 volt. I will fire up the power supply with 5 volt and 1.8 ampere. Should be adequate, I think. Like so. Like so. So now I have connected this to power, and only power, no charging. And I will try to open this and see if I can turn it on. And this time it's about the Olivetti M15 Computer, one of the largest, more bulkier of the computers with a 80C88 CPU. And Ulevetti was one of the pioneers in PC clones back in the day, and I have several Ulevettis, but only sold their portables back in the day. Even though I did a lot of work on the more prominent line of not so portable computers from Ulevetti, I mostly was in touch with their carriageable range. And Ulevetti was a company that was very early in the PC business, and they started out doing a parallel exercise with selling both CP/M and MS-DOS compatible machines in parallel. But they quickly went all in for the PC MS-DOS compatible market. And before that they even sold some mainframe computers and other stuff. The M15 is a stylish device, and I like the idea that they found the space for both a volume knob and an on-off switch. It's quite stylish, and I especially like the speaker grill on top of the lid here. This is from the sales brochure that was printed when the computer was launched. And as you can see on this picture here, this is quite the bulky device. And they have fixed some of the ergonomics with this by making the keyboard detachable so that you can take the keyboard and put it in front of the unit. Yeah, and that you can see in this picture. This is actually the brochure for the M15 Plus, and it's the same computer, it only has one or two small differences. And our machine is the original, not the Plus version, and it has an 80C88 CPU on 4.77 MHz and 512K of RAM. And it was delivered with MS-DOS 3.3, I do think that the earlier models was delivered with 3.2. There was an option for this machine with a 20 MB hard drive, but as standard it came with two 720K floppy drives, and it has a special 25 lines by 80 columns where they had 640 by 320 dot resolution. Yeah, and the keyboard, as I said, is detachable, and the battery life was 3 to 6 hours, depending on stuff, I think. And the machine weighs about 5 kilos without the power supply. And the machine was launched in 1985. This machine, as it's not the Plus version, has a very special PSU solution with separate cables for power supply and DC charging, as you can see here. So there actually are two outputs from the power supply. This was later abandoned in the Plus version, and there is only one single power adapter here, and I do think that that is a much better solution. Even though the plugs in this version doesn't fit the other way around, I do think it will lead to some confusion. The bad news is that I have not found even a single page from a service manual, but there are some info in the installation and operation guide, but no schematics, dismantling guides or fault finding. Yeah, outside changing the battery and the user maintainable stuff. That is not a good thing to have in the retro community. A good fault finding guide and some proper schematics would have been nice for this computer. Yes, now it states power and it comes on, springs to life. I will change the camera angle so that you will be able to see this. I will just have to do some angling of the computer. It's counting up the memory as of now. I will try to reduce some of the overhead lights. That did not be better, I think. Maybe we can just do the contrast. Insert system disk. I can try to boot it with this DosCember disk. I'm not sure what's A and what's B, but we will try this one. Cannot load file, press a key to retry. I think this is it for this episode. We couldn't get this to load with the DosCember floppy that I had in here, and my DOS 3.3 floppy seems to not be working at all, so I have to make a new one. But if we want to investigate further on this machine, please let me know, and we will make a follow-up episode on this. But for the Christmas calendar, I think we are done for today. Please let me know if you want to address this machine further in another episode. So, thanks for watching. Please hit subscribe so you will be notified when we post new videos, and hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.